Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this special town hall on disaster assistance for agricultural workers. We are so thrilled to have an excellent panel to share with you all today. And so we will get started, but first I'm going to share a few brief instructions that you'll need to follow while we are here on this town hall session today. You will see that the chat has been disabled, but you do have a Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen. Please use that Q&A function to ask any questions throughout the town hall today. And at the end of our discussion, we will be going through that Q&A chat and answering any questions from our participants. But in the meantime, we will have questions that we will ask our panelists and hopefully address many of the burning questions that you all have. But again, we'll address your questions in that Q&A function at the end of today's talk. At the end of today's town hall, you will also receive a link to an evaluation. That evaluation just has 4 very brief questions for you to provide your feedback to us. That feedback is extremely important as we plan future town hall events like this for you to share information back with you. That information will also be shared and used in a rapid response grant that we're actually working on. So your feedback is going to be extremely helpful as we plan future opportunities like this one. So again, you'll get that evaluation whenever you close the session today, and that feedback is extremely important. So now I want to introduce a few of the people that have joined us today, and we'll hear from a few of our participants about their particular agencies. First, this virtual town hall session is hosted by the Southeastern Coastal Center for Agricultural Health and Safety. That is a regional initiative that is funded by the CDC as well as the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. And it is based at the University of Florida in Gainesville, Florida. And this initiative addresses the health and safety of people working in agriculture, fishing, and forestry here in the Southeast. And I should have mentioned this earlier. My name is Ashley McLeod-Morin, and in addition to moderating today's session, I serve as the Associate Director of Communications for the Southeastern Coastal Center. And with that, I would like to introduce Camille. She is the private sector manager for FEMA, and she's going to share a few words about FEMA. Camille?
Thanks so much, Ashley. So FEMA has 3 major components: individual assistance, public assistance, and mitigation. And we're partnering with the SBA and USDA to accomplish our mission of supporting state of Florida and households affected by Hurricane Ian. We hope we're able to get you guys some clarity today on our programs, and look forward to talking with you.
Thank you, Camille. Next, we're going to hear from Brenda Rogers. Brenda is the District Extension Director of the South Central District, which serves counties from Pasco County to Collier County here in Florida. And she's going to share a few words about UF-IFAS extension post-Hurricane Ian.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I just want to say thank you to all of you, the agencies that are represented here. We're all a team, and we do have extension or other UF professionals that serve on committees that all of you are part of too. So we do thank you for your service and for what you do for all of us. IFAS has a role, extension has a role in the preparedness and the response and in the recovery. It varies from county to county. Each county has some expectations of our faculty and staff, as well as the expectations we have from the University of Florida. And so we found ourselves for Hurricane Ian in having an extension agent serving in sheltering roles and those kinds of factors. And in some of the areas, Sarasota specifically, we had sheltering even 10 days after the storm passed. So that's one of the roles that our folks play. In response, we had UF Vet Science set up their mobile surgery center and examination facility, and we're able to see animals that were brought to them in Lee County and Fort Myers at the service center in Terry Park, which was real centered to downtown Fort Myers. And I believe the report was about 80 animals a day they saw for almost 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And the maximum was a little bit more than that, but lots of things, lots of surgeries, and just lots of care for animals. Many of them were found by individuals who brought them in for attention. And so we helped with some of those kinds of activities. In recovery, the major role for Extension is the agriculture assessments. And then we also have Florida Sea Grant, which those agents work in the coastal areas, in the marine kinds of programs. We have clam farms, and we have the commercial fishermen, and those all kinds of things that are associated with the water. And agents there were working with the individuals, and they're identifying their recovery needs to get their businesses back on open, and providing food for Florida and our visitors. But they also help with locating and identifying vessels that have been damaged and are out in the waterways, re-identifying where channel markers are no longer in place or working if they have lights and those kinds of things. So some of our roles have been in those kinds of duties. We also had a lot of work in getting supplies and fencing materials, animal feed, those kinds of supplies that were provided through some of your agencies, but our agents helped to get that delivered to the farms where it was needed. Some of those were small family farms, some of them were the big ones, and helping to get debris removed from where animals live. And I actually heard a story about just a farm with horses, and the metal blew off, and the horses were so curious about the metal in their field that there were some cuts. And so, they immediately want to get that debris away from where the animals are. And so those kinds of assistance were provided. With the ag assessments, Krista Court, actually shared this morning that we had the biggest response to the agriculture damage assessment for this storm, Hurricane Ian, than we've had in any others. I don't know if it's because of the larger landmass that was impacted or what exactly. I'm sure she'll be telling us a little bit more about that as that report comes out. We do provide educational material, as do many of you, focused on whatever the commodity is that needs assistance with recovering items from homes, what to throw away for food safety, those kinds of instances. And then in the last couple of weeks, we've seen our extension agents actually doing presentations and webinars, and just trying to get information out to help people in the restoration of their home landscapes and on their farms, giving them a chance to recover. I saw a mango grove, and the mango trees were laying on its side, and so that those farmers got together and sat the trees back up, did the pruning, and are in hopes. And our horticulture agents told me 6 months before they would know if those trees survive. So those are the things that we're doing. Our agents are out just about every day, making contact with their growers, and offering our support in any way that we can that helps them get their business back on the ground. So I'll conclude there. Thanks again for all your support of Florida agriculture.
Thank you so much, Brenda. I think that paints a great picture of really all the hard work that IFAS Extension has done all the time, but particularly after Hurricane Ian. And so again, hopefully that we'll have a lot of really great resources in this town hall that can aid in the effort as we continue to move post-hurricane, but then as we think about future hurricanes. Now we would like to briefly introduce all of our panelists who are with us today. And so I'll go through and share with you their names and their titles, as well as what agency they're with, and then we'll get started with our panel discussion. So first we have Manny Portella. He is with External Affairs with FEMA. We also have Sandra Lawson, who is a Public Affairs Specialist with the Small Business Administration. We have Carrie Hawkins, a Emergency Management Specialist with FEMA. Cordell Ewell, an individual assistance program manager with FEMA, Camille Schutz, who we've already heard from, who is a private sector manager with FEMA, Joe Woody, who is an emergency management specialist with the United States Department of Agriculture Rural Development. And then finally, we have Russell Towndraw, who is an emergency management specialist with FEMA. So thank you all for joining us today in this important discussion and sharing some really excellent resources I know are to come. So with that, we will start with our panel discussion. And our first question is, what are some of the disaster assistance needs that you all are currently seeing among our farmers and agricultural workers? And I think we're going to start with you, Cordell.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me, Ashley. I work in FEMA. I'm an individual assistance program manager. So when folks call in to register for disaster assistance, that's the realm that I'm in. From my perspective, what I'm seeing is many survivors are seeking assistance with damage to their primary residence and personal property, and those displaced are seeking temporary housing assistance along with assistance on getting a personal property loss either replaced or getting some financial assistance in that realm.
Thank you so much. Joe, what about from the USDA side? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with housing, especially with the farm labor housing. And we're trying to utilize our multifamily housing vacant units, if appropriate, for those people looking for a temporary residence. We're also looking at a lot of production loss as far as agriculture is concerned. So, you know, you're going to have a lot of cost share issues that come up and upfront monies from the producers that's going to have to come into play before grant assistance come in longer down the road.
Thank you, Joe. And I know that we'll have some more specific questions a little bit later on related to housing. Russell, I wanted to know if you had anything that you wanted to add on what you are seeing with disaster assistance needs, particularly among our farmers and agricultural workers.
No, ma'am. Mostly what I'm doing is the debris removal. You know, I can give you some stats that we've picked up. We're seeing from the hurricane about 30 million cubic yards of debris on the right of ways, and so far we're tracking about 16 million picked up so far. But that is the debris is what I'm heading up. So, and we don't do a whole lot with all agriculture and with debris. But I just want to kind of give you where we are and what we're doing.
Thank you, Russell. So what resources are currently available post Hurricane Ian, whether that's particularly for agricultural workers and farmers, but anyone that might have been impacted from Hurricane Ian, what resources are currently available? And I think we'll start with you again, Cordell.
Okay, so FEMA provides disaster relief through numerous ways. One in particular is our individual and households program. Within this program, FEMA can assist with housing assistance that comprises items like rental assistance, repair assistance, replacement, and also other needs assistance. So items such as personal property, transportation assistance, medical, dental, and funeral assistance. So if survivors were impacted and they have a disaster-related need for those items, they could potentially be eligible. So one thing that I'm telling everybody is register, register, register.
What about you, Sandra, from the Small Business Administration side? What resources are currently available right now?
Thank you, Ashley. The Small Business Administration offers a disaster loan program, and the resources under the disaster loan program is that we help you with your physical damages to your small business or business of any size, really. It's different in the farm-related environment, however. For farmers, we can help with your primary residence if it's damaged, or with a business that's non-farm related, we could help with the physical damages that you might have sustained or incurred due to Hurricane Ian. And for individuals, we can help the homeowner, the renter, with their personal property losses and things like that. So just within the farm business itself, whatever we do has to be non-farm related. because of the USDA Farm Service Agency.
Thank you, Sandra. Carrie, did you have anything that you wanted to add on what resources are currently available?
Resources that are currently available, things that are available through federal assistance and loan products through the SBA or private or personal loans. There are some people in the community who are not going to be eligible for federal assistance, or they won't get enough to cover their uninsured or underinsured unmet needs. They won't have access to enough loan products to help them out. So what we're focused on right now is standing up long-term recovery groups and unmet needs assistance community groups to access resources from the community, nonprofits, private organizations, service clubs, faith-based organizations, to pool together money, manpower, materials, things that can be offered to individuals who come out the other end of this with unmet needs, and match those needs with these resources to help them recover a little bit more fully. And that's community-based. As we move into the recovery phase of the disaster, that's what we're doing, is, identifying partners, gathering these resources, things that will be available after, everything else is tapped out, so that people can still have access to something through disaster case management and hopefully recover, if not fully, at least better. And we do also work through our individuals and households program. If we identify individuals with unmet disaster related needs, try to pair them up with voluntary agencies, or access and functional needs, try to pair them up, whatever their need may be, pair them up with the right agency that can help them, whether it's a medical device, glasses, housing is a big issue right now.
Thank you, Carrie. Manny, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I wanted to add that we support nonprofit organizations as well, because like in the case that in Manatee County, that we have a farm that it's a shelter for animals, and it's a nonprofit organization. So FEMA can support nonprofit organizations through the public assistance program as well.
Thank you, Manny. And Joe, what resources are currently available specifically related to housing from the USDA side?
Well, if we're talking about housing, USDA Rural Development has repair loans and grants for very low income families. We just recently announced the grant amount increase from $10,000 maximum to $36,520. So that's available to help those low income families remove health and safety hazards. Like we mentioned earlier, we're doing the transitional housing for vacant units if anybody qualifies. Now, when we're talking about production agriculture, let me just keep on going from where Sandra at SBA left off. Farm Service Agency has enacted multiple programs to assist farmers, whether it's with livestock, crop damage, equipment, etc. So we want to keep everybody aware of those registration deadlines that are out there. And in our follow-up email, we'll provide the appropriate point of contact for everybody by county and statewide, and the programs that are activated and deadlines. NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service, has also enacted programs, and you've got Risk Management Agency that is doing the crop insurance. So we wanted to encourage everybody to reach out to your local USDA service center and register and see what exactly you do qualify for.
Thank you, Joe. And anyone can answer this next question. I wonder, what are the best way for our stakeholders that might be joining this town hall? What's the best way for them to get the resources into the hands that need them? Is there a particular office that they can go to, or a particular website or group to actually get these resources into the hands of those that need them?
From individual assistance side, there's multiple ways you can register for disaster assistance. You can call 1-800-621-FEMA or 3362, or you can go to a disaster recovery center. You can go to disasterassistance.gov to also register, And you can actually go to that webpage to find out where your local DRCs are in case you want to go speak to somebody in person. So there's a lot of different ways you can register for a disaster assistance with individual assistance.
And we'll be sure to share those numbers and websites in our follow-up communication as well. Thank you, Cordell. Anyone else can speak to how to actually get these resources to those who need them?
Yes. From the SBA side, we're partners with FEMA. We always recommend that people stop and see and talk to FEMA first to see what can be done. FEMA can give a referral to SBA, and we're always in the disaster recovery centers coupled with FEMA and other agencies. So that's the best way to find us. When you go and search out FEMA, you'll find us. Also, the applications are available online as well. We have disaster loan assistance .sba.gov. And we also have an 800 number if someone needs further instruction or want to call or want to get an application mailed or what have you. It's the 800-659-2955.
Thank you, Sandra.
And on the USDA side, let me just add the Farm Service Agency can be reached at 877-508-8364. And Natural Resource Conservation Service at 352-338-9500.
Those are excellent. Thank you so much. And again,
Also with for people who have AFN, functional access and functional needs or unmet needs, we also take referrals from these disaster recovery centers. We get referrals from them to help match them up with assistance. And then moving forward, we do, with disaster case management, we do pull cases not just from people who have registered from FEMA, but people with unmet needs just in the community. So they would be helped too through the disaster case management process and through the long-term recovery groups, whether they've registered or not.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. So several of you have actually already mentioned DRCs. Cordell, could you tell us a little bit more about DRCs and what people can expect when they visit a DRC?
Yes, Ashley. So a disaster recovery center, it's accessible facilities, and we also have mobile offices set up after a disaster. We typically place disaster recovery centers near affected communities in an area that offers equal access and resources for all. When you go to a DRC, you'll learn about disaster assistance programs. You can apply for disaster assistance. There's somebody that will be face-to-face with you that can go over the process and answer any questions that you have at all. You can also check the status of your FEMA application. Sometimes, you call the 1-800-621 FEMA number, and it could be a lengthy hold time. Well, you can go to a DRC, and that's another option to check your status there with somebody in person. You can also speak with somebody to help understand notices or letters. A lot of times, a survivor will get a letter that they don't completely understand, and there'll be somebody there that can help answer some of those questions. And also, we do have individual assistance folks there that can help find housing and rental assistance information, and also provide referrals to other agencies that offer other types of assistance. And what, like Sandra said, SBA's usually always there as well. So if we give a refer to SBA, you'll be able to speak with one of their representatives as well.
I wanted to add that offering all these services, we have Spanish speakers. I'm part of that team. I speak Spanish, so we have Spanish speakers representative out of FEMA in disaster recovery centers as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Manny. I think that's really helpful, particularly among this audience that we're hoping to serve. Sandra, I believe that the Small Business Administration also has something fairly similar to the DRCs. Can you talk a little bit about the BRCs? And you're on mute.
We have the business recovery centers, and they're, anybody who needs help from us can go and visit there, but they mainly deal with businesses. The business applications are a lot more complex, and you'll get that one-on-one attention there. So any business that needs help, and again, in the agricultural industry, we help the non-farm related business services. So we would love to be able to talk with them about whatever their needs are. And then there are a few exceptions to the rule, but if there are ever any questions as to whether you're eligible to apply, stop by and see us at either the DRC or the Business Recovery Centers.
Thank you, Sandra.
Mhm.
And Manny, you just talked about this a little bit, but of course, many of our agricultural workers are not from the United States and may not speak English. How can these workers learn more about disaster assistance in addition to Spanish-speaking individuals that might be at these DRCs? What other resources are available to those that may not speak English?
Yes, at the Disaster Recovery Center, we have Spanish speakers. Same, they call it 1-800 number, 1-800-621-3362 to get registered. Option number 2 is in Spanish. And for those that are not American citizens, I will leave Cordell to get into details for that.
No, you hit it right on the head there, Manny. You can go to disasterassistance.gov. There's numerous languages to where you can you can actually select whatever language is your preference and see information online about disaster assistance and some of the resources available in addition to visiting a DRC. So on our side, there's a lot of different resources.
Thank you. Joe?
Just wanted to add, USDA has translated a bunch of their fact sheets on the various programs into multiple languages, and those are available. And we can arrange for interpretation services when needed.
Yes, we absolutely appreciate when our partners have translated materials. I think that that makes that communication gap a lot easier to close oftentimes. So thank you for sharing that. I'd like to hear from a few of you about what barriers may exist that you see for residents who are seeking assistance after Hurricane Ian. And some of those we've kind of mentioned already a little bit, just the challenge to learn more about disaster assistance. But what are some of those barriers to seeking assistance, particularly after Hurricane Ian?
In some of the counties that have a little more rural areas, it seems like transportation is a big issue for folks because some of these areas don't have a really well-developed mass transit system. It's not like, folks can just go catch a bus or a subway or something. And Uber and Lyft and companies like that sometimes do offer free rides to disaster recovery centers don't really operate a lot out in these rural areas. So that's another issue. And then the price of gas recently too. So just transportation, just getting somewhere.
Absolutely. Joe?
Yeah, you're going to have limited housing stock also, whether it's single family housing, multifamily housing, or farm labor housing. There is limited supply of available and affordable rental right now. You'll see landlords that are raising the prices for repair and recovery workers. And so that's leaving the regular residents out with nowhere to go. So that will be a trend that you're seeing right now. And it's common in disasters, unfortunately.
Yes.
Another barrier I see is survivors just may not have access to information about disaster assistance because if they're out in rural areas, they may not be monitoring social media. They may not have access to news outlets where they can see the different sources of assistance. So for FEMA, what we're doing is we actually have disaster survivor assistance. So we have personnel actually going into these rural areas, dropping off flyers and talking to residents, trying to get that information out to survivors of those who have been impacted on how to register for disaster assistance. So we're doing the best we can to get that messaging out. Our registration deadline is November 28th. So we're really pushing to register, and we're sending folks into the field to try to spread that message as best as we can.
Thank you, Cordell. And yeah, I think that that is an important role that many of our participants on this town hall can play, is making sure that we're getting that information out to those communities, again, that might be particularly hard to reach during these times, especially. So I think that's a really great point. Cordell, I'm going to ask you another question to follow up on that. What are some particular barriers that you're seeing among agricultural workers and farm worker communities seeking disaster assistance?
Well, and that's the thing. I wanted to touch a little bit on general conditions of IHP, Individual and Households Program eligibility, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding on what's needed to be. People think that just if you're not a U.S. citizen, you're automatically disqualified. But there are some ways you can still register. So here's some of the conditions, just the general conditions. You must be a U.S. citizen, non-citizen national, or qualified alien. During the disaster assistance registration process, you can self-certify your citizenship status and declare under penalty of perjury that you fit one of those statuses. Also, you must be able to verify your identity, and your disaster cost needs must be underinsured or uninsured. A lot of times folks, if they register for disaster assistance and they get a letter that says, hey, you're insured. FEMA won't duplicate assistance, but if insurance gave you, for an example, $10,000, but you have an estimate that's going to cost $20,000, $30,000, and potentially FEMA may be able to provide additional assistance on some of the unmet needs. And also the disaster cost needs must be a direct result of the presidentially declared disaster. And that's huge, making sure that, if you had flooding, if you had, as long as the damage is caused by the disaster. Also, another, you have to be a U.S. citizen, but if you're not a U.S. citizen, non-citizen, national, or qualified alien, but somebody in your household is, they can register for assistance, and the person that is not can be a co-applicant. Also, if you have a child that fits one of those categories, and you can register under your child, and you can be a co-applicant. So the application process can still continue under those circumstances.
I think that's a great point, Cordell. And just to get some further clarification on that, your child could be under the age of 18, but living in your household and be the applicant. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Perfect. So of course we know that natural disasters, and particularly hurricanes here in Florida, are inevitable. Is there anything that residents and businesses can do to prepare for future natural disasters, specifically as it relates to disaster assistance? And I'll open that up to anyone who would like to answer that.
For the Small Business Administration, we're beginning, and more so now, along with FEMA, to preach preparedness. And, now that we're seeing disaster after disaster, preparedness is really important. And even now, in the midst of a disaster right now, the SBA talks about mitigation assistance. It's like preparing ahead of time. Now is the window. If you become an SBA disaster loan borrower, you can think about getting additional funds added to your loan amount. We call it an increase, to do things to protect yourself going forward from another hurricane in the future. Like building back stronger is the message, while there's a window of opportunity to do it. And it's a great time to do it, especially, the damages that were incurred here in Florida, given the resources that are available to people now as a property owner or homeowner or business or a nonprofit. You can think about requesting those additional funds to get a stronger roof, to do elevation, to do things like build a safe room or what have you. There are lots of different options out there. SBA can't tell an applicant what to do, but you can get with your contractor and look over some things that, were the result of damage and see what could I have done differently, or what can we put in place to make this a stronger situation in the future. And you can get up to 20% of the total verified loss on that particular damaged property. So that's an opportunity to get the funds at a low interest rate, long term, up to 30 years. So it's something when we first got down here working the Florida Declaration, especially in the Fort Myers area, a lot of the business owners that were listening were thinking, oh, that's different. You know, now I can do something a little bit more to protect myself going forward. So we just like to put that option on the table.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Sandra. What else do others have to share that people can go ahead and do now to prepare for future related to disaster assistance? And I also want to make an announcement. I already see a few questions coming in the Q&A. Feel free to go ahead and start adding any other additional questions that you might have, and we'll soon be answering those. So any other tips on how people can prepare for future disasters related to disaster assistance?
So also I want to put out there, you can go to ready.gov where FEMA provides information to be better prepared for future events, whether it's flooding, tornadoes, any type of mitigative ways you can mitigate your home. You can go to ready.gov and some additional information is there from the FEMA side.
Manny?
I wanted to add the important under the mitigation is to get an insurance. And I wanted to add that all the assistance that you may be entitled for under the FEMA programs, either on the individual assistance program or public assistance or even a SBA, it's based on whatever your insurance did not cover. So if you have insurance, you will have to be talking to your insurance first, and you may be entitled for whatever assistance you will receive based on what the insurance did not cover. But the flood insurance and insurance to your home is the best to start the mitigation process.
Thank you, Manny. Russell, did you have something you wanted to... Oh, go ahead, Joe.
If I can echo that, we're working several disasters across the nation. And in the housing market, we're finding people that were insured were underinsured. So this is sort of like a public service announcement to go what Manny said. Check with your insurance agent, anybody on the phone, spend 15 minutes and look at your coverage. Because just because you have insurance, you probably don't have adequate insurance because of the housing market right now.
No, that's an excellent point. Russell, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just want to add another wealth of information. Is FEMA has a YouTube channel. And on the YouTube channel, there is all sorts of, it's not, it's individual assistance, it's public assistance, there's hazard mitigation, there's all sorts of information on our readiness on our YouTube channel as well. So, don't be afraid to go into YouTube and type in FEMA and go to our channel and see what we have.
That's an excellent point. Thank you so much, Russell. And so with that, we're going to answer some questions from our participants in the Q&A. So again, feel free to continue to add those. We have a few minutes to be able to answer questions from you all. And so I'll get things started here with some questions that we've already received in the question answer format. First, it says, I've not seen any assessments on the impacts of jobs for farm workers and the possible economic impact assessment for loss of income, particularly for farm worker families from the hurricane. Does this analysis exist? And additionally, what has been some of the impacts to H-2A workers, both in terms of those who are currently here and those who were scheduled to come to work in Florida, but whose visas may have been affected by crop loss? Can anyone on this call speak to that?
So I can do just a general idea. I think the best place that you're going to find that kind of information is at the county economic development level. I've been meeting with county economic development departments in the wake of Ian, trying to get an idea of what's going on. And it's definitely something that if they're not already gathering that information, if you reach out and ask them about it, it's something to kind of help shine a light on as something that is important to the community in order to make sure that we know that that's information that's needed so we can get help to the people who were impacted.
Thank you, Camille. Anyone else want to add anything to that? Joe?
Economic Development Agency will be doing their impact analysis on the labor. And what we will do, I think they're working with office right now on some issues, but we'll make sure we pass this question along and see if we can have it addressed during their analysis.
Thank you, Joe. I know that we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to ask this again, since it was provided in the Q&A. Are households and families and individuals who are undocumented eligible for assistance from FEMA?
And if they're undocumented, no, but there's other resources available. Like I mentioned before, if they have a child that's a U.S. citizen, non-citizen, national, or qualified alien, they can register with that individual as the primary registrant on the application, and they can be the co-applicant. But there's other resources out there that may potentially be available. So I'd still recommend to go to a disaster recovery center to see what assistance is available to them.
That's a great point, that if you feel like you might not be eligible in some of these other categories, I think it's always good to go talk with someone at these DRCs to get some clarification on that. Thank you, Cordell. How is FEMA working with non-government organizations to ensure that undocumented families are identified so that nonprofit organizations can provide assistance to those who may not qualify for FEMA assistance?
So the main way that we would do that is through our disaster case management. And that comes into play with the long-term recovery groups and the unmet needs committees. They pull the case information, maybe from crisis cleanup, those cases, people who self-identify, like with the nonprofits out in the community, Salvation Army, the American Red Cross, referrals we get from DRC's disaster recovery centers. So the identification happens that way, and then the case management happens through these committees, through these long-term recovery groups and unmet needs committees. I don't know, did that answer the question?
I think so, Carrie. Thank you. I think that was some great information.
Yeah, I do want to just add to that as well that folks like Manny and myself are actually going out into the community as well, setting engagements with different stakeholders. So whether that is nonprofits, private sector businesses, local governments, we are trying our best to get in contact with you guys so that we can get our FEMA messaging out. We invite SBA with us to some of those events, USDA, whoever is interested, and whoever you guys are interested in having come and talk. So definitely, if you haven't already had someone from FEMA try to reach out, feel free to let me know. I've shared my email with Ashley, and I'm happy to try to connect anyone who's interested in more information.
That's right. As Camille said, we are out in the community, and as we meet with these nonprofits and private businesses, service clubs, people who are out there, we can elevate their unmet needs as well as the unmet needs of their clients that they let us know about. We can elevate those and try to match these individuals with whatever is needed in terms of, money, manpower, materials, whatever we can do to help. So we do identify them through different ways.
Absolutely. Again, if you have any questions, please type those in the Q&A now, and we'll get those answered. But I wanted to open up to our panelists to see if there was any other information that maybe we haven't touched on already that you would like to share with our attendees today.
I'd just like to add that SBA, just like FEMA, we have a fewer hats, but we're out there touching base in all the communities, all the declared areas, even the contiguous counties, to let them know we're here, this is what is available, reminding them to register with FEMA first and then, come over to us. And then any other of the agencies that we know about, we'll definitely share that information, but we do like to get involved in every community and just let them know what resources are available to them.
Thank you, Sandra.
Ashley, I just wanted to reiterate that we want to make sure that everybody who knows that they were affected by Ian can get in contact with FEMA. The nonprofits and other organizations on this call who are more trusted institutions in your community, we're really relying on your help in identifying where we need to go and who we need to speak to in order to get that information out. So like I said before, just feel free to reach out. We're really doing our best, but we understand that, rightfully so, not necessarily a trusted institution all the time for all of our different people who were impacted. So please just help us to make those connections. Anybody who is impacted by Hurricane Ian and needs assistance, we want to make sure that we can help them out.
We really
And,
appreciate that, Camille. Yeah, go ahead, Cordell.
Yeah, one more thing is even if somebody says, I didn't have any damage, and you're one of the declared, the designated counties, I would just register, because at the same time, even if you don't notice any damage right now, you can always call FEMA, visit a DRC, you can make a change to your application. If you find out weeks from now that, hey, I did actually have damage to my home and I'm now seeing it. So we do have a registration deadline of November 28th. So I would try to spread that as best I can, is register. So even if you find out a month from now that you have some damage, you can always call FEMA and have your application adjusted to reflect that, so you can get assistance. But the most important thing now is just spreading the word for everybody to register.
Excellent point. And for anyone who's on this town hall today that would like to get connected with Camille, that if you feel like you would be one of those great organizations to help spread the word in your area, I can help connect you with her. So I think that's an excellent point. Another thing that I think is important to mention and to see what some feedback is on this, what documentation is appropriate to show when applying for FEMA assistance. And I think that kind of comes from documentation of damages, but then also thinking about some of our migrant farm workers, what sort of identification do they need to provide, whether that be a driver's license or what other forms of identification are accepted.
So when you register for disaster assistance, if you have a social security number, you don't have to be in person and bring all your documents. That's not always required. FEMA, you can register through assistance through disasterassistance.gov. You can open an app and register for assistance, and we do public records. We have access to that information, so you necessarily don't always have to submit that information. If you're a U.S. citizen and you have a social security number, register and have that handy and available when you register. So, but there are situations where, if you're an owner and you own your property and FEMA requires you to, provide ownership, then you would submit documents to satisfy that requirement. But when it comes to just registering, you don't have to go to a disaster recovery center with a ton of documents initially. Provide your social security number. What's the damage dwelling address? What's the address of what was impacted? So have that handy. Have all that information handy.
Yeah, I think that's excellent for people to know. Camille?
Yeah, so I just wanted to follow up that with having all that information is very important. And if it wasn't included in your application, you might have received a letter from FEMA saying that you weren't able to get assistance. Make sure that you read that letter thoroughly so that if it was something you have missed a number in the Social Security, you have your insurance information, but they didn't actually make a determination on what was covered and what wasn't. Those are a lot of the misconceptions that we're seeing, people thinking that they were denied assistance, and it's really, we need some follow-up. Those letters are written in kind of a legalese lens, so we do apologize that it's not super clear, but definitely make sure that you read through that letter. And if you are confused by anything, go to a disaster recovery center. There are folks there who are able to help. I also have some fact sheets on things that Cordell was just going over, proving homeownership, things like that I can share with Ashley. We have those in multiple languages. So if it's not English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, just let us know and we'll be happy to get those translated and sent out to y'all.
That's excellent.
Actually, following up on Camille's comment, I will tell you that the survivor has to be proactive. He will have to follow his case. He has to be proactive. The computer is not going to call him. You have to be proactive. If you don't hear from your inspector in 8 days, grab the phone and call the 1-800 number or go to the DRC. They have to be proactive. The same if you're applying for on a business, the business has to be proactive. The computer is not going to call you.
That's a great point.
And one thing I'll add is everybody's situation is unique. So it's hard to give a broad statement as this is what you need to do. So those letters are very important. And if you don't understand what's in your letter, visit a DRC or call the 1-800-621-FEMA number. And I've worked in a DRC before, and sometimes it's something as simple as when they filled out their FEMA application, they said they had no home damage and no personal property damage. So maybe something as simple as FEMA didn't refer you because when you did your application, you selected you had no home damage. So making those changes to kind of push the application forward is extremely helpful. So sometimes it's just go to a disaster recovery center or call the FEMA helpline, so you can get some assistance on understanding your eligibility decision or whatever is going on in your application.
That's excellent. Any final words from any of our panelists?
Yes, Ashley, I'd just like to add, sometimes we just recommend to people the value of going into the disaster recovery center or the business recovery center. You've got that one-on-one contact. If there are things that you don't understand, you can ask the questions right then and there, and that'll help because people can make mistakes, but if you're not sure, you can ask that person. So we encourage people to go in while the disaster recovery centers are open and available. You got the help that you need. The other thing is that for businesses, if you're applying for an SBA disaster loan, you'll need your contact information for all the applicants. You need a cell phone number for verification, social security number, or employer ID number. Any financial information like the income, your assets, account balances, monthly expenditures, everything that you would need pretty much for a regular loan, because it is a loan, you need to bring that or have access to that type of information. And then they will want to check with the IRS regarding taxes and things like that. So all of that's important and a part of the loan package.
Absolutely. Thank you. Manny?
I'm going to do it the other way around. I'm going to ask SBA, do you cover business interruptions, SBA?
Business interruption is an insurance, so to speak. So we give the disaster loan for physical damages or for economic injury because of the disaster. Business interruption is something else that you can explore through regular SBA, non-disaster related. Two different programs.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. This has been really excellent. I want to, again, thank all of our panelists for taking time out of your day and sharing all this information. I know that I learned so much, and so I'm so thankful that you all were able to provide this opportunity for our attendees today. And again, we will follow up via email and share all of the plethora of resources that our panelists have shared with us today. We'll send that straight to your inbox. I also want to let you know that in our follow-up communication, we'll also be sharing a recording of this virtual town hall. If you would like to share that with your individual stakeholders as well, please feel free to do that. And then very soon, we will also be sharing a recording that will have subtitles that are translated into Spanish in case that is helpful for your stakeholders as well. Again, please remember that as you close your Zoom window today, an evaluation will come up. And again, it is 4 short questions, and your time to answer those questions is very much appreciated on our end. And again, will be used as we plan future events for this. And so again, I know this just came through in the chat. I will share the recording via email in hopefully the next 24 hours with you all, so you'll have access to that very soon. So again, thank you all for attending today, and thank you again for our panelists for participating today. Thank you.